Oh, that's still there. Darn. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Between a Pot and a Hard Place. As always, I'm Stephen Colton.
And I am Chris Kirkpatrick. And I've got to say, my gosh, just when you thought that 2022 was going to be better, we lost Betty White on New Year's Eve and Bob Saget. I literally just told my wife before we started filming here tonight, and she's like, wow, well, there goes my childhood.
And the thing about it is, like, I don't want to jinx anybody in 2022, but so far, every episode we've had this year has had a major celebrity death. And I'm like, uh-oh. Does that mean we are killing people? Because if so, then, well, I doubt we have magic powers to kill people. But just saying, it's a little... I mean, Betty White and Bob Saget, what next week it's going to be like... I don't even want to predict, like Pat Sajak or something. Like, what? It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't think that our podcast has anything to do with it, but, hey, they need to knock it off.
Good evening. Thank you.
Hey, good to see you.
But yeah, I just wanted to throw that because I literally, we were just discussing off the air. Like, I just saw that not even 10 minutes ago. And then I had to put something together real quick and throw that on there because, wow, Bob Saget.
Yeah. It really was like a punch to the gut. I'm still kind of emotionally recovering from that right now too.
And honestly, he was only 65, I think they said. And I mean, not Sajak. Well, he's like 90 years old, right? I mean, I don't want him to die. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, what 2022 so far, at least with every episode, I'm hoping that we can have at least one episode this year that we don't have to put in memory of someone.
Let's hope so.
I mean, geez. But yeah, we're going to be joined in just a few moments. Our friends over at the Great Geeks Debate, and we're going to be talking about Superman and Lois season 2 that's coming out in 2 days.
I am so ready for it.
Yeah, and normal people have probably rewatched a little bit of the show. I did not. I didn't do it on purpose, but I've been binging Smallville and stuff like that. So before we get that going, I want to go ahead and throw out, because I don't think we did this last week. We might have. Our Facebook.com/Between a Pot and a Hard Place. You can follow our Twitter at Pot and Hard Place. Our sponsor, our friend, Mark Guggenheim. Always follow him. Follow me at Stephen_Colton, and follow Chris at CJ_Kirk1979. And check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, share, pay your friends to watch it, and whatever. Or if you're interrogating somebody, use it as a torture method at Between a Pot and a Hard Place. And so our theme this week, of course, like we said, we're going to be talking about Superman and Lois season 2. New episodes coming out January 11th in just 2 days on CW. And right now we have Misty coming in from our guests. I guess they're guests this week. How's it going?
Hi.
Hey.
Oh, now I'm on the wrong coast again. Chris and I joke about like how I'm on the East Coast, he's on the West Coast, but I'm always on the left side of the screen. And I just figured out how to switch it last week.
And now you'll be here in a second.
Okay,
we're just lamenting over Bob Saget.
I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, him. Well, actually, that's 5 this year, so we probably need one more. I'm not used to being like a slice here, so I have to do weird things.
Right.
It is weird. I don't know. There's different layouts, but like I don't know how awkward. There we go. That's a little bit better.
I can live with that.
Right. That'll work. No, so Misty, for you, like Full House, I think that's probably where people knew Bob Saget from the most, is from Full House. Or maybe if you watched his time on America's Funniest Home Videos.
You know what? It was all like the same, like it went from him being on Full House to him being on America's Funniest Home Videos. Like it was kind of like a streamlined thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
So yeah, that's
it was crazy.
Yeah,
it is. You know, it is what it's weird. It's just he was on tour. He was fine yesterday, and he just drops dead today. Which I guess, you know, we never know when our time clock's going to expire or anything. But you know, I'm like, okay, they said there were no drugs on the scene, which, as far as I know, he was never into the drug scene. I know he drank a little bit, but he was never a big problem. And then I'm like, okay, but you know, we had Sidney Porter and Betty White, but you know what, as much as I'm so sad to lose them, it's like they lived a full, very long life.
Right. I mean, Sidney Poitier was what, 94?
And Betty White was 99.
Yeah.
99.
I mean, you know, as much as we love to keep people forever, at some point it's got to happen, right?
Yeah.
But when people die and they have extra, I hope not, Corey.
Yeah, Corey is asking if it was COVID, and I don't think anybody knows anything yet because
no,
according to everything I've seen, they just discovered like about 4 hours ago that he was that they found him, and it was like, wow.
They found his body. Of course, you know, as an actor, and sudden deaths and hotel rooms, you suddenly go to the obvious places. Okay, was it drugs? But we'll have to wait for the toxicology report. Was it natural causes? Are you going to blame natural causes on COVID? Because that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it's just sad because, you know, he was kind of like the dad of the 90s.
He really was.
Yeah.
He really was.
And
we have to welcome Chloe into the show. I just kind of like snuck her in there without mentioning it.
Hey.
I was listening to you guys. So one, he did do drugs. He was very big into the cocaine scene.
Okay.
So drugs were a thing for him.
Maybe. Well, then maybe it was drugs. They got to wait and find out, you know.
But he's been clean. He's been clean since before Full House. Like that was part of the promise that he made to the girls.
Okay.
Was that he would never touch drugs again because they did see him on alcohol. And he basically said to them, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. Like, yeah, sure, he still drank, but he never got to the point.
But look at Corey Montauk. You know, everybody on the Glee cast kicked his butt to rehab. They got him totally detoxed. He was totally good. And the one day that somebody couldn't be with him is the day he died.
And then the same thing happened with Heath Ledger. Like you gotta kind of sit there.
That was an accidental, I thought.
But that's still like happened. Like somebody was always there monitoring whatever he took. I mean, the last thing he posted was just before 3 a.m. yesterday or today, I guess.
No, midnight. I don't know what coast. Oh, he was on that coast. So
so it would have been, but it was 3 a.m. Yeah, give or take a little bit.
Which is the same time for you and me. Just different time zones.
Because he just finished up a show. He was on tour. Like he still had how many dates going, you know? Yeah. And I mean, you can't say nobody saw it coming. I think the only one that was kind of expected was Sidney Poitier. Like they kind of knew that one was coming. Betty White, she was still doing things, but I mean, like her health wasn't that great, but they weren't sure when. Sydney, I think,
is also 99. You know, like we were just talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you're sitting here going like,
I like.
It makes me feel old, so old.
I like the joke that I saw. It was in a meme, and it said, you know, you've lived a good life when everybody's complaining that you died at 99.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
She wanted to build Lego forever, and she couldn't get past the fact she would no longer be able to build Lego. You know,
I think it broke her heart.
I know. That was probably the saddest one. Was, you know, that if you weren't, you know, 0 to 99, you couldn't play with Legos anymore.
Yeah, it for some reason ends at 99, and I think Lego is going to have to change that just for to make sure nobody else.
I know. Well, if we could take a break from losing celebrities, especially from my childhood, I would be more than okay with that.
Yeah, well, you know, Chloe and I were talking about, like, knock on wood, the sad one is up next is either Dick Van Dyke or the Queen of England, and both of those people have been around my whole life. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for King Charles yet, so keep on ticking, please.
Well, we want to welcome you guys back. It's been a little while. I know you guys have taken a little bit of a break with Great Geeks Debate, and so we're excited that you guys are back on board and recording and everything else too. So This is kind of a treat. I know that we share an equal love for Superman and Lois, and especially with season 2 coming up here on Tuesday. I mean, how excited are you guys for that?
I'm excited to see Clark, not as Lois. I'm like literally sitting here going, yes! Not because I don't love Lois, but I want him to see, because they're bringing in Lana Lane. Lana Lane.
Yeah, they're bringing in Lana.
Yeah, Lana Lane. And there's a little rifty thing going on between Lois and Clark. And I'm like, but Lois without here's the story. I mean, if you've watched Smallville, and actually, it's not even Smallville. It's the comics. It's in the comics.
Yeah.
That without Lana, without Lois, without the other one that I can't think of right now, without those 3 women, Clark wouldn't be who Clark is today.
Right.
And it's super exciting. They're going to do that. And it's also nice to see that Lois and Clark aren't going to have the perfect marriage, because they focus so much on, instead of being Superman only, they're focusing on Superman as a dad too, and a husband. And I think it brings back to earth or reality for viewers that he does have mundane problems, things that he just can't superhero himself out of.
Yeah. Well, I think that is really the novel idea of the show, right? We've seen so many different iterations of Superman in all of his forms, but that is his true vulnerability. His true vulnerability, his true kryptonite is the connections that he has with people, specifically those in his own family, for better or worse.
And you also have and beyond like his marriage, he also has one son who is got all of his powers, or at least some of them. And you have another son who is looking like a muggle at this point. It makes me sad that he's a muggle, but I really don't think he's a muggle. I think he has all of the Superman latent abilities. I'm just waiting for them to he may not be able to fly, he may not be able to beam things out of his eyes, but I hope he has the latent stuff. Like, it would be nice to be able to split the powers.
No, but that's where I think exactly. After our last conversation, where you had brought up the idea that his vision had always been amazing and his healing was particularly fast. When we had Jordan Elsass on this show a couple months back, just for you, I asked that specific question, and the face that he made, that face you make when you can't say something that you
mean
really
the Tom Holland face? The Tom Holland face that he has to make now, like all the time, where he's like, yeah,
moving on.
He made the face. I know. I would have killed for a lie detector, and I realized that they can't go and divulge.
Did you tell him it was for me?
I think we did. I might have dropped your name, but
we might have.
I just thought that was the funniest question. That I was like.
And the funny thing is that Misty missed half of that, and I'm bringing it up half the time, going, he had a cast on his arm not even a week ago, and now he doesn't have anything on his arm. Like,
the other thing that they haven't brought up though is technically Jonathan is not a variant of the whole rebuilding of the world. Jordan is actually just a variant. He's not. He didn't exist in the real world.
Yeah.
And look, I know they're not going to bring it up because they don't have the guts to do it, but darn it would be so nice if one of the Paragons would be like, you only had one kid, right? And that was this one. And suddenly you have 2.
If you thought that Alex had problems before he finds out that he wasn't supposed to exist, just wait until he finds out that he wasn't supposed to be there, right? He really was an accident. That one, I think, that would send him over the deep end.
I think it'd be great. It's such an amazing, when Oliver rebuilt the world, because this is Oliver's world now, even though they call it Earth Prime, I'm calling it Oliver, because Oliver's the god of the world. I think that's one thing that people don't realize now. Oliver's not dead. He's literally watching over the entire world he built. They put him in his penthouse from season 1.
Yeah.
He's literally the god.
He is.
He's a little bit of an absentee god, though, isn't he? He's kind of a little bit aloof.
The thing is, the gods in DC tended not to be meddlesome unless it was like Mitzi Spitlick or which was on Supergirl. And occasionally you had like Music Man, I think is what his name was. But for the most part, it was the Marvel gods, Stan Lee and his the one above all and the Beyonder, who meddled a lot and changed things. But DC, they had a point where somebody had to come in. I don't remember who it was, but they killed everyone in the DC world. And the god had to come back in and fix it because Superman can't die. Like, that was the thing.
Yeah, you can't kill him.
You can't kill Superman, and they managed to kill Superman. And so somebody had to come back and fix the world because Superman had traveled to and from time and stuff. It's how he's found Justice League and stuff.
I cannot die.
Oh, you have the black cape.
Yeah, I got the black one.
Tyler Hoechlin looks so nice in the black cape. Like, that is one thing I will miss from Evil Superman.
Yes, I love that suit.
If that's the last we see of it.
It might not
probably
be. I don't know.
I don't think it will be the last we see of it, because I don't think that's the last we see of Zod either. Zod is a reoccurring nightmare for Superman. And now that Supergirl is done, I'm kind of hoping they're going to drag in Lex Luthor to be the proper foil to the right person.
I think that'll happen at some point.
Because I like Lex Luthor. Like, Lex Luthor has always been, if you have a good Lex and you have a good Clark, which Smallville did, and obviously the original versions, I will not say, despite it, I will not say the Snyderverse. I don't much like the Snyderverse, okay? It's not my favorite thing to watch.
Oh, that's going to get us in trouble.
I liked everything about it except Lex Luthor. I liked
Henry Cavill, but he doesn't have the charm and allure that Christopher Reeve had and the ability to play both sides. He played Superman beautifully. But then when you look at Tyler Hoechlin and Christopher Reeve as, or even Dean Cain to some degree as, what's his name? Clark. You look at Henry Cavill, and I know Cavill can act because he stars in the
Witcher
Regency dramas and period dramas. So the man can act, and he's been on stage, but he just could not make the clean break from big buff persona man to meek little reporter very well. And so that's my gripe with that Superman. I've had gripes with other Supermans. Like, I think that Brandon Roth got the raw end of the deal because he looked just like Reeves, and so everybody set his bar unreasonably high for him. And there was no chance, no matter what he did, he couldn't get to that bar, and so it was just a flop. I mean, by comparison, if you haven't seen the Spider-Man movie, I'm so sorry, but it's the same comparison as we're currently having with Andrew Garfield, who it looks like Sony has finally admitted who's in whose universe now. So, and who's coming, Sony announced, or what I understand, Sony is basically like, okay, we're going to have Tom Holland go to the MCU and we're going to have Spidey-Man. And now that, and I think the compromise, I bet you, is the fact that Venom is now in both. So it'd be great. I mean, what's his name? Tom Hardy's a workaholic anyway.
Oh my gosh. So
it probably is a compromise that he plays in both. And that was the compromise to get Spider-Man, having a separate Spider-Man for Sony than for MCU. That all depends on Tom Holland. Anyway, I digress because I really want to just talk about Spider-Man and nobody wants to talk about it. But anyway.
My tickets got canceled. I'm sorry we went back into lockdown.
No.
Yeah, no, we were supposed to go on Saturday.
Oh, I ruined the show for her anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, I was still gonna go for it because okay, cool, whatever, I'll go. And then we get a phone call from the movie theater going, yeah, we're going to have to like cancel your tickets because we've overbooked and you can go see it at this time. And we're like, we both work. No. Yeah. So we'll get there eventually, but at least I can watch this online. I don't have to like go anywhere for it.
I think in the new season of Superman, I'm happy to see finally the mundane problems of their marriage, because you've seen what happens when they bicker a little bit. Clark is usually kind of very okay. But it seems like Clark is kind of going to stand his ground, because now there's this extra daughter that isn't actually Lois's daughter, but is Lois's daughter. And those feelings for an ex-husband and a daughter are going to be super complex.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we already know that Lois is emotionally compromised because of her miscarriage, right?
Yeah.
Which I think they took a lot of courage in bringing to the forefront in an episode where she acknowledges that she allowed herself to say things and act in a way that she wasn't proud of. And a lot of that was because of her, I guess, unresolved issues about losing a child.
The idea, I was shocked in that episode still that Jonathan managed to forgive her, because I as a viewer was like, I wouldn't talk to her for a month. I'm like, I don't care what she's bad about. Jonathan literally has all of his dad's forgiveness, because I'm like, I don't want to forgive her. I would have had him disappear. Like, I'd have gone running over to Lana's house, go call up the grandpa he can't stand, whatever.
But that really is, at least right now, that really does seem to be one of Jonathan's superpowers, right? It is that he can get to a conflict with somebody and the next minute they're friends. He and Jordan get into an argument and yet they're still tight, and they have each other's backs. I mean, I think that is a quality about him that really stands out, other than just the fact that he's got this gift for confronting people and saying things at the right moment. So
he has all of Clark's suave, I don't know what else to call it, where he could pick the right words at the right time, and the way he picks them is meaningful. But he has all of his mother's vengeance and anger is maybe the right word, or at least her mouthiness, to where he takes a knife and could just repeatedly stab you with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else to call it, because it's definitely not just Clark's. Like, he has the vibrato of Clark, but his mouth at times, even though you hear Clark coming out of it, there's things that Lois would say that hit harder, which is why I think that Jonathan is so effective. As we're Jordan's dealing with the fact he's Superboy, and he's just, I'm waiting for the inevitable flip where they suddenly are not going to be on Team Brothers. And I thought we were going to see it last season. We saw it a tiny bit, but it'd be funny to see what would happen if the cards are flipped here and the brothers are actually on the outs. Because now that I think, from what I'd be shocked if Clark and Lois are living in the same farmhouse at the moment. I feel like Clark would avoid conflict with her and go to the barn or something.
That was my thought too. I was like, he'd go to the barn. He'd just sleep out there. Like, I
he's not going to get cold.
I'm going to go sleep in the fortress. I'll be back.
I was thinking that would be the place to go.
Yeah.
The barn. Yeah. Like, I figure, he could go tear up the barn and build. And I mean, they never say if he needs sleep, but he does anyway. It's interesting because you watch him and you're like, I've always wondered, does Superman actually sleep, or did he just sit there and pretend to sleep because everyone else around him is?
And the same with eating. Like, he can't die from not eating, so like, does he even get hungry? But he eats all the time. Like, why?
Well, he's not like Barry, who must eat constantly.
Yeah, because he can't. Yeah, he can't burn calories. Can't gain weight, lose weight. He can't change at all in any human way. So it's like, why even try to eat? Why go to the restaurant and waste money on something you know is doing nothing for you?
He does like his wine, though. He does like his wine.
They really like their alcohol on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad it
Which
can't
is-
affect him, though.
No, it can't. Doesn't it? Well, but no, he would probably have to have the same thing as Barry, whatever they give Barry, so he can drink. And even then, he's Kryptonian, so who knows? But at least you have, super fast Superman to chase after super fast Barry.
Right.
So from the depths of the DC universe, Superman does not need to sleep, nor does he need to eat, nor does he go to the bathroom. The only thing he needs is the sun in which to power himself.
Okay.
Oh, see? I like Chloe. She's my oracle of all knowledge.
Yes.
Yep.
Corey seems to agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know about the not defecating thing. I thought that he was normal in those respects. So that was a surprise.
I mean, I guess if he actually ate food, he would have to, right? Or no? I mean, where would it go? I don't.
He probably does if he eats food, but
yeah, I'd assume he does if he doesn't have to, though. Right. I mean, but I'm going from like the depths of things that people have answered over the years of does Superman need to?
It's why when he goes supernova, he like knocks himself out of commission for a week. Which, who I'm happy didn't die? I'm so happy Morgan Edge isn't dead. I don't care what his real name is, but I'm so jazzed that they didn't kill him. I know it's going to come back to bite Clark in the ass eventually. I get it.
Of course.
Sorry, but
yeah, and that's Adam Rayner.
I love that guy. He's amazing.
Yeah. He is amazing. I really love their take on that character too. It's the first time you see him as a straight up Kryptonian. Like I've been binging Smallville for the last couple of weeks, and their version of Morgan Edge, he looked like some like crooked Jerry Springer, like I'm gonna get you, and then like he's dead, and then that's it.
Well, I don't know if you watched Supernatural, but it was his impression for me was a lot like Crowley was introduced on Supernatural.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just, I hate to typecast, but it's a very British thing to just walk into a show and be like, I'm stealing it. Here I am. You have amazing leads, and I'm going to be the person that everybody accidentally roots for on your show.
I mean, it is very kind of stereotypical that they cast the guy with the British accent as the villain.
I just like the chemistry between Edge and Clark, because you could really believe they, for a half minute anyway, that they were actually brothers, and that if they weren't trying to kill each other, they would have been really awesome together.
You kind of get the feeling that at one point Edge had wanted to really have a relationship with Clark. Once he realized that he wasn't alone, had it not been for Zeta Rho, for the influences Zeta Rho, there's a possibility that he might have tried to actually have a relationship with Superman. I think what we see, both Tal and Superman are foils of each other, right? Very similar in some respects, and yet they take very divergent paths.
I think it shows you the difference between having a father like Jor-El and frankly, what's his name? It's not Martha Kent's his mom, but I just drew a blank on his dad's name. But having the Kent family raising a Kryptonian versus a Kryptonian raised by a crazy Kryptonian, and a Kryptonian who was abused because he was acted like an alien. It's you see the opposite of what happened, nurture versus nature. And I hope if they revisit that, it's because they need him to save Clark this time. Instead of Clark having to put him down, switch the roles. Because Clark, yes, he did go dark Clark for 5 seconds. But Clark also fought it really hard, and because his stuff is rooted in his family. And I don't think they accounted for that his humanity was the thing that made him strong, not everything else. And it'd be curious to see what they revisit. I hope that they revisit maybe later, but I don't know how they said there's going to be multiple villains this season, and obviously the girl that what's his name Jonathan is dating is the daughter of the guy that we saw in the first season that Clark did his clap thing and knocked him to Kingdom Come. I can't remember his name, but
oh wow! So that there's that. Are they saying that's exactly who she is?
From the rumors that I've read, we're just coming back. So if there's new rumors, like or old rumors, I have no idea. But
yeah, the synopsis said that it's a secret that tears them apart, and it's kind of like, okay, is it the secret of the fact that he lied for his brother, or he because of who he is, or is it because of her father? But there's this dark secret that tears them apart. Ooh.
Which one, Lois and Clark?
No, the
Jonathan and his girlfriend.
Yeah.
So it's either the fact that Jonathan is Superman's son, or her father is the guy that's in jail. But regardless, like it's star-crossed.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work.
They had to throw that in at some point with star-crossed lovers. Like you're going there, okay.
I kind of hoped that the star-crossed was gonna be Jordan and what's her name? The one that you like that I can't remember her name. Sarah. Because I like the chemistry between both brothers, and I love and hate the CW in equal measure for that, because they always pick people that have really good chemistry and you could see it building either way. Mm-hmm. And typically they choose the not fan favorite brother and
not fan favorite option. Yeah, they do that every time.
Yeah, they do. They pretty much do it every time. It's a CW thing. Like they chose Damon for Elena, even though Stefan was a better ship, but Damon had loved Elena longer. So who won? Nobody. And Catherine Pierce was the originals, and then what's her name was the originals too, Hope's mom, and it's a trope. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that she lives. I hope that all I want her to do is live. Like, I don't care what else happens. You can kill off her little sister. You can kill off her mom and her dad, but please don't kill her. That's the thing. In Superman never kills anybody, but Superman's villains are kind of a pain in the neck. Mm-hmm. They do kill people, and Superman's usually picking up the mess. I mean, it was a really big controversial thing with the Cavill Superman when he straight up snapped. I think it was Zeta.
It was Zod.
Zod, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big no, you jumped the ship, you flew overboard. Superman never did that.
I think that you could make the argument that his decision to snap Zod's neck mm-hmm. was under duress. Like Zod wasn't going to stop. He was going to kill those people, and even then, he had tried. Like he felt like really torn about his decision to have to ultimately kill him. I think the good thing is that Superman certainly isn't taking lives needlessly or without.
He's not Batman.
No.
Like, I mean, with Batman, he at least made it very clear where he will try not to kill people. But if they don't give him any options, he will. It's always been with Batman. He will kill people if there's no other option. Like, if there's not a way to save them, which is why Arkham Prison is so full, is because of Batman, right? But Superman, it's always been an unwritten rule where he never kills anybody. And then he goes and kills somebody before, like, shocked Pikachu face, you know?
The thing is it's hard to trope. Like, you had Batman created quite literally to kill people, like because Superman at the end of the day, even in the CW version, last season, he made a whole point that he loved these people. He loved these Earthlings, not just his little family, but once he came into his powers and went on his journey of self-discovery, he really loved them. And I think that's the part where you see the difference between Superman and Batman, which I would love for them to properly cast Batman at this point they thought about it in the big crossover event 2 years ago now.
Well, we haven't seen Robert Pattinson. Let's give him a chance, everybody.
No. I was talking about the CW because I would like to see. Oliver went to Gotham.
Yeah, he's the original. He's the original prison.
Bruce invested in Arkham Prison stock and
Corey.
filled it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Corey's always got a good comment.
Always.
100%. That's how he makes his money. It's just
That's it. He owns
But
it.
I would love to see Bruce come visit Superman and them have like, because it would be, depending on who they got to play Batman, of course, now that technically you had Ezra Miller flop into our universe. I think it was Ezra Miller.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He flopped into the Flash and everybody went, oh my God. I think that DC kind of didn't realize they were opening a door for now Grant Gustin to accidentally go to the major motion pictures. They accidentally made them intertwined, which I didn't think would happen. But it's funny because they did that. And Supernatural, I think it's Supernatural is also canon because of Legends went back in time. And so now Supernatural is connected to the DC universe.
It's crazy.
And the Hanna-Barbera universe, like
right.
the Supernatural is just kind of like stuck its head. I think they've actually stuck their face into like every single conceivable universe.
It's because it lasted for 15 years, and the
CW didn't start screwing it up until like the last 2 seasons. So I mean, that was decent show up until like, you know, they bring the parents back.
I mean, I think what we've realized is that when we deal with the multiverse, and amazingly, both in the MCU and in DC, you know, in both areas, we're both getting stories about the multiverse. But it means that literally everything and anything is possible, and that's what's crazy.
And the biggest problem is every time, like, there's this like hawing in the background from that like 5%. I don't even want to say that they're 5%. They're probably closer to like 3% of let's do a crossover with Captain America and Batman and Superman. And here's the problem. Every time they've done crossovers and tried, it has failed catastrophically because that is way too many freaking egos for one little screen.
Okay.
And
there we go.
And it's just it's like, no. I don't know, but for DC, though, like for our Superman, I want to see him grow. I want to see what he's gonna do. I don't want to see him go gung-ho Superman, but I feel like if Lois were not there, or he was on the outs with Lois, he'd either go sit in the barn and pout, and his boys would come out there and try and lure him back in, you know, with cookies or whatever. Because that's, you know, that would be like John. John would sit there on top like on a haystack and be like, you know, we have to go back inside.
But, it's time to go back in, Dad. Let's go.
Well, so I don't want to give a contrary opinion here, but I actually really like the dynamic that we see between Lois and Clark. You know, and I think that number one, I think it's funny that here is Superman, who he's fighting criminals and bad guys all over the planet, but it is Lois who's in control of the house, right? It is clear that she's the disciplinarian in the house, and Clark kind of acquiesces to her.
He does, except for when he's super angry, because you've seen him where Jordan will bait him into a fight, and I don't know if that's Clark. See, like, it's really hard to say, is that Clark? Is that Kal-El? Is that Superman? Like, which version of it is it? But when he gets into fights with Jordan, there's a couple times where I'm like, you know, I'm a little scared of you right now. and I feel like that it's more Kryptonian when he gets angry, which is why I think he defers to Lois, because it's not like he's going to hit his own kid. Heck, they were in a yay, you're back.
That was weird. I don't know what happened.
You look at him. Even when was it Zod? I think it was Zod possessing Jordan.
No,
right?
that was Zeta Rho.
Yeah.
Zeta Rho possessing
Yeah.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Somebody was possessing Jordan. And
It was me. No.
and he wouldn't, and Clark couldn't even bring himself to throw a punch.
Yeah.
And so, because it was his son's body, and his son is very human.
No, that was brilliant of Edge
was.
and Zeta Rho using Jordan as a shield, right?
Because they were possessing him because he had the power. But what we know from Jordan, as far as I remember, he doesn't have speed healing. And if Clark threw a punch at Jordan, that's a Kryptonian punch to a human. That would have killed him, as far as I could.
But we know that the Eradicator, even to a normal human being, gives them Kryptonian powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
My guess is that what the Eradicator did to Jordan was activate his cells in a way that he wouldn't have naturally activated on Earth by itself. So that's what I guess my question is how things are going to go going forward. Is he still going to have access to those abilities, or is he going to lose them?
I think they go away, because I just thought of, like, going back to Smallville, like when he got sucked into that cave or whatever and spit back out, and he was like, "Oh, I'm Kal-El of Krypton." He had like no memory of Clark Kent or nothing like that, and then he had all these full Kryptonian powers. And then when he snapped out of it, he was like, "I can just run fast and punch things again." I think it'll be like that. I think he'll just go back to like his default mode or whatever.
I don't know. Like, there's so many complex things that have to be taken into account, I think. And I hope that he's going to be normal. Not normal, but okay, as normal as Jordan gets. Because Jordan, I feel like he's gone through the gambit last season, like to the point that you're like, you pushed a teenage boy who already has mental health issues. He's half human. I mean, yes, he's Kryptonian, but he's still half human, and he's not dealing with being half human very well, unlike his twin brother, who obviously deals with it a lot better. And I hope that Jordan, like, we see him be able to grow as a human, not as a half Kryptonian. We've seen him grow as a half Kryptonian, but we got to see basically last season Jordan be the half Kryptonian Superboy, and we got to see Jonathan basically save his brother consistently. And use his very non-powers, but his very good powers of observation and networking, I don't know what else to call it,
right,
to be successful. So,
no, I think you're absolutely right as far as with Jonathan, that he's got skills that are non-Kryptonian in nature, right? His mother's side really comes out in a way. I know that he has really cozied himself up to John Henry Irons, right? The idea of wanting to help with the suit, and even him stealing the guns. I think that side of him, maybe he's more like his grandfather than he cares to admit.
I think he is very much like his grandfather, but the difference between his grandfather and him is, I don't think that Jonathan has the narrow-mindedness of his grandpa. Jonathan kind of sees like Clark sees. Like, I don't know what else to call it. It's the big picture. It's the good versus evil battle. It's the right versus wrong. Even when Grandpa, like, much to me and Chloe when we reviewed that, we're like, Grandpa's trying to turn one twin against the other twin, and that would be destructive.
See, the thing that I think with General Lane isn't the fact that he's very narrow-minded, because I don't think he is. I think he puts something above himself, which I think is what he gave to Jonathan. Like, for him, it's country above all. Like, he will do whatever he needs to for his country to save his country. And I think with Jonathan, he's placed his family above himself, where he'll do anything for the members of his family. So if it came to let's go steal the guns, the only reason he went back in and nearly got himself killed in the RV is because to get those guns just in case. Like, he wasn't thinking of I'm going to get killed. He's thinking I need these just in case, you know. Everything he's done has always been for somebody else and not for himself, you know.
Right.
So I think it's not that he's narrow-minded. I think that he's got like a huge view. I think it's just that when it comes to the Lane side of things that he has, which he has Lana's pragmatism, I think, is the biggest thing he gets from his mother, but he also gets he's definitely a Lane. Like, if you were going to stick him either with a Kent or a Lane, you're going to stick him in the Lane category. Like,
okay, he's practical like the Lanes, but every time I look at Jonathan is the clone of Clark. Jordan acts more human than last season. Last season, Jordan acted way more human and made poor decisions with a lot of power versus Jonathan, who, other than getting drunk one time and yelling at his brother one time and being spiteful and hurting his ears, for the most part, he's pretty chill. He has Clark's unending amount of, you know, anger, unless you're going at Clark's family. And in that case, Clark is a rage machine.
So I think that's the part that I'm concerned about and curious about, because that is definitely my mentality, is that I may not show that I'm going through a struggle or a crisis outwardly, but it's going on inside.
mm-hmm.
When we look at the opposite, Jordan lets everybody know that he's going through a crisis. He sucks up all of the oxygen in the room and he gets all the attention. But I think there's a lot more going on with Jonathan that he lets people know.
I think that what we said, Jonathan, I think, knows he has powers. I think he's always known he has powers, and he has just opted to not say anything about it because his whole life has been second best to his brother. Like, his brother needed his parents. His brother needed this. His brother needs his dad now. But what's Jonathan get? Like, I'm always on Team Jonathan because I mean I think he's adorable.
Yeah, and he's still called QB number 2.
Yeah,
right. QB number 2.
He's QB number 2. Like, he's second. Like, and then what was his nick? Short Stack got
Short Stack. Yeah,
Short Stack got all the glory. Again, he stole the one thing that Jonathan had. He stole.
Yeah,
he doesn't have anything. So eventually, this very human with Kryptonian powers, even if they don't want to admit it, is going to spontaneously combust and demand somebody pay attention to him. And I really hope it doesn't take blowing up a mine or something terrible.
Yeah, I hope not. But I feel like we talk about tropes and patterns, and whenever there are twins throughout history and literature, there's always division, right? There's always division.
I think it's brothers or sisters. Like, the trope in this case, if they're going to keep twins, if they're really going to keep twins, then, you know, I don't see anything really. I mean, they're going to flip back and forth on each other. I mean, the closest brothers we've ever seen in my watching TV history were Supernatural brothers.
Yeah.
They were as good of friends as they were enemies. And when they were enemies, they were competitive enemies. Very competitive.
Yeah,
and they were
even then when you're looking at the Supernaturals, like, they were built to be the trope of brothers.
Right.
They were good and evil. Like, they were Michael and Lucifer. That's what they were destined for. That's what they were created for. That's what they literally ever since season 1, who they were, that was what they were.
They're descendants of Cain and Abel.
Yeah, like, and that's what they've been their entire life, is Cain and Abel, and that's literally what they've been through time, and even from season 1, when you didn't realize that, you saw that, sure, Dean is the smart ass, the one who's gonna like flip you off and like go eat pie, but he will do anything for his younger brother, where his younger brother, until a little bit later, he was kind of selfish, let's be honest. It wasn't his only motivation was, I want to get dad so I can go back to my other life. Like, I don't want to be here.
Okay, that was only 1 season.
But it lasted for 3 technically, until they found their dad, and then they're like, oh yeah, we should probably, and then he has superpowers. Let's go, like, supernatural.
No, that lasted for 1 season because they killed John in season 2. In season 3, they drug Dean to hell. But anyway.
And I think the point that you're making, though, which I think is solid, is the fact that when you deal with brothers or when you deal with twins, they're gonna have conflict.
Yeah.
And whether they become, antagonistic enemies of each other eventually, or whether it's just simply that dynamic, that back and forth that becomes a hallmark of the show. I think that's really what's clear to be seen.
The beautiful part of season 1 with those boys was the show felt weird when they weren't on the same team.
Right.
When they were on opposite sides, nothing seemed to go. So I always separate this show into the adult problems and the kid problems. And sometimes the kid and the adult problems interchange, but when the twins were not on the same side and competing, or not even really competing, but just mad at each other, nothing felt right. And at least for me, like, I get why Jonathan, made Jordan's bell ring in his head, because Jonathan didn't like being eavesdropped on. But on the same side, Jonathan is the one that pulls Jordan from the brink of implosion. And in that moment, he created a little nuclear bomb. So it's like, and I feel like you saw it when Jordan saved John at the end. I think it was Jordan saving John at the end when he floated up in the air. But like, they instinctively want to save each other. If you change that dynamic, they're going to have no choice but to give Jonathan something to protect himself. And we've already seen how crafty he could get. And Jonathan, I do not think would have the audacity to go after his dad with anything, but he was proven that he did have the fortitude to turn a gun on his brother
and pull the trigger.
Yeah. And pull the trigger.
He shot his brother, which to me that floored me.
I knew he could. I knew that John could do it, but I didn't realize he was going to actually pull a trigger towards it, because at that point you realize that he will kill his brother if he has to kill his brother. But that makes me really concerned, because I don't think he has the audacity to do it to his dad. But if he can turn a gun on his brother, it doesn't, it's only a half step further to his own dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get like to his Lane half, and you look at General Lane and you go, uh-oh, we created a monster. And I don't want a monster. I don't want one of the brothers to become a monster. Okay, literally in Supernatural, they did turn one of them into a literal monster many times. But it's a little bit of a different show. Once you go dark side on Superman, people don't really reciprocate well in letting you come back. In Batman, they sometimes have a little bit more of a bandwidth, but I don't think the show has a bandwidth for, if they're going to turn a brother dark, you're going to live with that dark side for a while. And I don't know, like, how do you forgive your twin brother, Ellie, for shooting you?
Corey, another one. So
did you hog tie your brother?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
None whatsoever, huh?
None.
Were you possessed by some other Kryptonian kind of like spirit or something, and you don't remember it?
I can neither confirm nor deny said hog tie. So
I actually think that's really creative. That would be fun. Like, I wouldn't mind if Jordan and Jonathan had a squabble where they did mundane, silly, like, stuff that we would laugh at, but it would be really annoying to the other brother.
Right.
I think when we're looking at the tropes, I think we're trying to pick the wrong tropes, because the more you think about it, first, I did see Corey said about the fact that they never did the Bruce Campbell crossover. Bruce Campbell is actually canon in Supernatural, since they bring him up all the time, so he does exist.
Heck, in Walker, Texas Ranger is now canon to Supernatural because of now this is a variant of Sam playing Walker.
But I think the reason why we're looking at the wrong tropes is we're looking at them as two separate people. I don't think that's the trope. I think the trope is that they are two halves of one person.
Right.
And I think that's the trope they're going for. And that's why it seems so awkward when they have that division, why nothing ever seems right for either of them when they're too far apart, is because they are literally the same person. And because they're two halves of the same person, and that's why they're two very different people. Like, there's nothing crossing over.
I know you didn't watch Arrow, but it would make sense when Oliver created. There was only one. They only had Jonathan.
One.
Just one.
And now there's suddenly two. And you basically just dragged out half of, Jonathan to make Jordan. Well, now they're two halves of one person, which is why nothing ever seems right. So if they're gonna go do a trope, I think that's the way they're going to go, or I should say that's the way they should go.
I wonder how they would put them.
If they would put them back together.
If they would put them back together, only Jonathan would exist. Because Jonathan was the original version. And if they did, they fixed Crisis, which Crisis fixed them, technically. I don't know how else you want to call it. If they did, but that's one risk I think that the DC has to consider with all of the Marvel universe going to hell in a handbasket, because technically Crisis came before on the CW and all of its shows a couple years back, before COVID or right during COVID. Anyway, back then. Now Marvel is finally doing their Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is Multiverse of Madness for Marvel. What I don't think DC fans really need is, or any fans really need, is both of DC and Marvel on big screen and on small screen, creating multiple things, because all of a sudden, if we all have multiverses here, Multiverses of Madness or Crisis on Infinite Earths, we're suddenly stuck with everybody being in everybody's universe.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets really confusing of how they put that all back together. Now, as far as I know, DC did it and they're done. I don't think they did the Flash 5-episode thing that they did. And that didn't, I haven't watched it yet. I tend to watch the Flash in just later. I watch it in half and halves. And then they didn't do their crossover. But I know Marvel's doing it. And if Marvel is doing it, I'm a little worried if they're going to put Jordan and Jonathan back together. What kid do you get? You technically get Jordan or Jonathan, because he was the original version. He's the only version that existed.
That's what but these shows and their plays of expectations. Mm-hmm. How much would it mess with us if instead of getting Jonathan, we really get Jordan?
Mm-hmm.
But what do we do? Because if we get Jordan, then it's technically Jordan as a time variant. So then would the Legends come in and have to fix it? I mean, they'd have to. Well, I don't think they'd have to kill him. I don't know what they would do with him. But
go back in time maybe and stop Oliver. You stop it. No, I don't know. That would be interesting.
If they are two halves of the same whole, then that's why it feels weird when they're not together. And I think that's why, the chemistry between, I always call her by the wrong name. What is her name again? The girl, girlfriend.
Sarah.
Oh, Sarah. Yeah.
I always call her by the wrong name every time. I have to edit it 100 times. It's Sarah. Is it going to be Sarah dates both brothers and then has to pick a brother?
That happens.
I'm just, it's it happened. It happens all the time in tropes, but
yeah.
The thing is Jordan is good for her in one way. But really, I don't think Jordan needs her as much as Jonathan would need her. They're like, Jonathan doesn't open up to anybody. Jonathan is like a compressed can of air. And when he's around her, they talk. So I have to wonder if eventually she will become the Lana between, because Lana was between Luther and Clark most of the comics, and if they will make Sarah between Jordan and Jonathan, simply because it's the next generation. And they kind of already set up that trope by having Jordan lie to Sarah repetitively. I also have to wonder if Jonathan didn't tell Sarah when he had the chance to tell Sarah. There's a piece of the scene after they get in the accident before with Grandpa, and that we really didn't get to see where he's talking to Sarah about what's going on, and then she runs to get them. But it was a commercial break, and it's like they had a conversation we didn't get to see. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if that ever comes up. I don't know if it will, but there's so many loose chads that
Right.
I don't know. My overall hope for this season is, let's see what they do with, like, I want to see Clark, what he's doing, like what he does if Lana's or Lois is mad at him. Like, we haven't seen that. We've seen him try to help, but what does Superman do when his wife is like, I don't want to see your face right now?
I mean, like, he goes out and kicks a cow to the moon, and who knows? Honestly,
But he's also dealing with another kid that is technically his wife's kid, but isn't his wife's kid, but she is. And that's going to be really complex for her. And then there's the two guys, because now you have kind of a love triangle or square, because technically I still think Lana loves Clark more than she lets on.
Probably.
And it would actually kind of be like a weird shape, because then Lana's husband, who I wouldn't have cared if he died, but he didn't end up coming out a bit of a hero, which was nice in the season finale.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, like, if that guy grew. He's the fire department chief, and they finally let him be a hero instead of something worse. It'll be interesting to see if Lois, what she's going to do with the paper, and Chrissy, who I thought was a red shirt the whole season, and she suddenly got upgraded to series regular, which was, I thought she was going to die. I'm like, you are literally here to die. We are going to fall in love with you, and you're going to die, because that's what you're going to do. Didn't do that. So I don't know what they would do with her story. I don't know really what job she's going to have, like, unless they're going to bring in Jimmy from somewhere, unless she's the female Jimmy. But they've already had a Jimmy in this show, I think. No,
well, not directly in the show, but
they had Jimmy on Supergirl. So they did have Jimmy in the universe. But we don't know if that's the real Jimmy, because that Jimmy is gone. So it'll be interesting to see if that's still the Jimmy. So Jimmy was there.
I think that Chrissy, she was one of the few people who was able to remind Lois about her journalistic integrity. Right? That there she was trying to play both sides. That she was supposed to be for the people, and at the same time she was keeping secrets and not going after the truth when her father was involved in it. And I think Chrissy was the one person who I think had the courage that I didn't think that she had to confront Lois about that.
I worry, though, about Chrissy, because, and it's like a sub-worry, I guess, because Lois has Superman to protect. And the thing about Superman is that is Clark Kent, who is very close already to Chrissy and the stuff, because he is a journalist. Lois is not, and by proxy, Lois has to protect her boys. Mm-hmm. And either Chrissy is going to become a Jimmy and decide, they're going to have to bring her into the circle of trust and be like, ta-da, or she's going to be the one that gets all three of the Kent boys put into some locked cell somewhere. And if you ever saw Roswell, I would cry if they did that, okay? They kidnapped the aliens and it was awful. They tried to drown them and it was absolutely the worst. So I would not hope that they would go down that route. But that route is scary. Like that's a part it's different from Roswell because they were not superhuman. But think about Clark, who's Sweet Kind Clark. Suddenly Chrissy decides to expose Sweet Kind Clark and everybody. And now there's these two boys. They get hauled off to a Area 51 type place. Because suddenly the commander guy, General Lane, has retired. There's a lack of protection there for this family. And you're bound to do something with it. And I don't know. Like she's either going to be in the circle of trust or she's going to become, I hate to say it, she's going to become a villain on accident because she's going to pursue who Clark Kent is or who Superman is.
I think you're both right. I think that we're going to see her go after the identity of Superman in much this kind of inspired by Lois. I think she's going to go after and try to find out who Superman is, and she's going to find out his real identity. But I also think that right now, their circle of people that know who they are is really small.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as we know, the Flash, I think there are more people that know who he is than don't, right? His secret identity is a joke at this point. I think it's kind of time that some people know that Clark Kent is Superman. So I think that might make some sense.
But wouldn't it make more sense if it... My mother is yelling at me.
Okay.
but to me, I would be worried about like Lana, his best friend, the person that he calls his best friend in the whole world doesn't even know. But I think she's smarter than she lets on. I don't know how, she got starstruck by Superman last season. And she also played his mom. So I'm wondering how much she doesn't know. But then you also look at her daughter. Like, I think those two people in that family, if they're going to expand their circle of trust, let it be like those two people. But I don't think it should be like Barry Allen, where I swear by like season 3, the whole universe knows.
Oh yeah. What's the reason that I should believe you? Because I'm Barry Allen, right? I don't want that to happen. That was a terrible idea. But Oliver did that with best friend guy in season 1 of Arrow. Malcolm Merlin.
No, Malcolm Merlin's kid.
Yeah.
The guy that died.
Yeah.
Prometheus from the crossover.
Right.
I can't remember his name right now,
right.
but he did that when he did shoot Malcolm Merlin and said, "Oh, trust me because you always have." But there has to be some degree of people that know. But obviously, it's going to leak eventually. Like, I feel like they're going to torture us. And for those who have not seen Spider-Man, I'm so sorry. I feel like that is doomed to happen to Superman, and it makes me cringe.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's a bad thing because you look at Steve Rogers and it didn't change who he was to the world. But I feel like the key difference between if we compare apples to oranges with Steve Rogers and Superman is one's an alien, one is just a supercharged human. And one is technically a threat to Earth, but he's never done anything except protect Earth. But then if you expose Kal-El or Clark, do you expose Kara by accident? Even though I think Kara exposed herself.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I mean, Kara has come out to the world that she really is Supergirl, and I think that her coming out, at least on her show, was that she could have her cake and eat it too, right? That she can still be the editor in chief of Catco, and still be Supergirl, and she doesn't have to live a double life anymore. I'm still surprised that those two worlds have not intersected at all.
Right.
I think they have to. So I think that the reason they did that was they learned with the Flash that, and maybe even a little bit of Legends, that the show had to stand on its own 2 feet.
Right.
They like Arrow stood on its own 2 feet all by itself, doing just fine. And then they introduced the Flash, but then they started the backdoor crossovers like all the time, and then they started pulling people from the main shows, and putting them on the other shows. And when you do that, you're just dragging temporarily ratings. You're not giving a chance for the cast to be the cast. And I feel like, as much as I would have loved to have seen, I just want to see Oliver. Stephen Amell just needs to come off of his perch, and he would. He said he would do a 6-episode run on the Stars or HBO of Oliver. And now that Guggenheim and Greg are over there, go ahead, let's go. 6 months of Heels and 6 months of Arrow. I'll be okay with that.
We would love that, absolutely.
Yeah, it would be nice.
I feel the only thing missing with Superman is Oliver. Like, that's the only that character, he was okay to put in crossovers, because at some point he stopped being just Oliver. He started being the leader of what became is it Justice League? Yeah, Justice League. I think they're Justice League. Anyway, I get confused. The Avengers, Justice League, whatever. Different names, same concept.
So I know we have a limited amount of time.
Oh yeah, you guys got to go with.
But I didn't want for us to end this conversation without addressing, I think, the big elephant in the room in regards to Jonathan Kent in the comics, and that is his coming out as being either is he at least a member of the LGBTQ. Considering the CW and their views on representation on their shows, do you think that's something that they might ultimately do with the character?
I think it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
I don't know if it'll be Jonathan though.
See, that's the whole thing. If they want to make it
Jordan.
if they want to make it true to the comic book, it would have to be Jordan that does it if he is going to be taking on essentially Superman's mantle.
It also would be a good pivot point to move Sarah, who makes Jonathan a better person, because Jonathan has someone to talk to, not necessarily romantically, but if you're going to pivot, at least you have a pivot point to move, or plot twist point, whatever, to pivot into having a relationship with one brother while the other brother can still be friends and go through his sexuality crisis. So I think there is, people keep making, like, it should be normal at this point. They shouldn't have to announce this character has done this. It's like, the more you announce it, I feel like the people that are on the fence or figuring it out are like, why are you announcing this? Did you announce this or that? And so it's like, just put it in the story. Stop announcing it. You're putting in the story, and let people love or hate the story on their own measure, instead of accidentally doing what Supernatural did. And for a couple seasons, they tried to put Dean with Bella. They tried to have Sam with all of his girls, and they ended up killing pretty much every female on that show, because the chemistry was never better than it was with the two brothers and then their little trench coat friend and then eventually another trench coat friend.
Right.
I mean, I will say I'll give her credit and I will remember her name probably after this, but the character Charlie, and the fact that she ended up with Dorothy and then with Crowley's mom at at the end.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of sitting there going like, that's the best way to do it. It was not, oh my God, it was literally, Dean was trying to get in her pants and she's like, hell no, not my type.
Right. But she still loved Dean. She loved those brothers. That was a very strong love with Charlie and those brothers.
Yeah, because she was essentially like their sister, and that was, and she saw them as her brothers. Like, that was the love that was there, and that's perfectly fine to have that there. I mean, could they've gone further with the whole, like, with Castiel, even of like with the Destiel even have worked? I'm sitting here going like, can we just pretend that it was there and get the whole thing out of the way?
That's the thing. Like, I would have rather that they queer baited, or the community saw it as queer baiting with Destiel, even though it was simply Nisha Collins and Jensen Ackles having a real life hilarious friendship together that did that. I don't want to see them go down the road of let's announce it. Let's say we're going to make Jordan or Jonathan bisexual or any of these other characters. And then we lure in the community and we either ostracize the people that are older watching this show, because really this show is split much like Riverdale was. It's split into the half adult audience and half teen audience. And you're going to have different views. So just do what you're going to do and let the people use their very good brains to decipher out, I'm going to like the show and maybe I don't like all the decisions on the show, or let them be like, hey, this is brilliant. This is going well. Let's do it. It's the same problem over on the original version of 911. They have very much the same. They have a couple that has very close together. And the two guys, they have a good friendship and they have a rapport, and whatever people are seeing, they literally made an entire other show, 911 Austin, I think is what it is, where they took every character in 911, cloned them, gave them a slightly different backstory, made the two male leads on that show, one's an officer and one's a firefighter paramedic now, and they made them gay. But on this show, the main show, where people wanted it, they have continually put them with females and baited, basically trying to get people to go watch Austin or Houston or whatever. And it's horrible to see, because the original fandom's like, this isn't fair. You literally made a whole new show to do this on, while the original fandom was shipping these people together because of how it naturally happened with the characters. So do you want to keep building? Hollywood has to ask itself, do you want to keep building on the, let's announce and do this and make it like this and make it weird? Or do you want to go with it and be like, sometimes things that we didn't think were going to happen are really good, and just find the way people develop it naturally? I think that if they do the second option, you'll have a lot more people that are happy. Mm-hmm. I know, because not all the comic book fans are happy about it either. And where do you ostracize people?
Right. And I bring that up very intentionally, knowing that not everybody is on board with that decision for the character. I feel like it's such a big part of the character currently, though, that it would be interesting for them to not address it. Mind you, not the first time that this show has, decided to play fast and loose. Chloe
and I were talking. We have some brilliant ideas that we could probably work together a little bit more, should we choose to. So we'll have to talk offline about that. But because we actually have really good conversations and come up with lots of things that are interesting. So we'll message and we'll figure it out. Yeah. But you guys have somebody else coming on, I think, or that was the last I heard. Steve, is that true or no?
Oh no, we don't have somebody else coming on. I just
okay. Cool.
I don't think. Like, boom, here's Clark Kent, like the real one. I don't know.
Oh my god, the real Clark Kent! Oh no!
Yeah, he's a real guy. Superman's always been real. Like, stop making stories
and he's
about
from
me.
Toronto. Oh,
Right.
Yeah, I just don't want you guys to run over your time.
No, we're fine. We had wanted to keep it to an hour, but at the same time, I feel like we're having some good conversations here. Yeah, we normally cut it off right at the 1:30 mark for us. So I feel, is there anything else that we feel, just to kind of, let me wrap up the idea, because I feel like going back through the series, the last 3 days, I've gone through the entire series again, just in preparation here for tonight. I go back to work tomorrow after 3 weeks off for break.
Because my daughter goes back to school.
Exactly. And so I'm like, I can't do that during the regular school year. I've got to do it during winter break. But I feel like there have been some subtle hints kind of scattered throughout that if they wanted to go in that direction, they could.
With which character, though?
You know what? I was really curious about Jonathan and his very close awareness with Tag. I thought that was an interesting thing. Nothing blaring. We talk about, you're talking about subtlety and writing good characters instead of just blaringly announce that somebody has a same-sex attraction.
Jonathan and Tag, I thought it was Jordan and Tag. I know Tag was antagonistic towards him.
If you go back and watch it, you'll notice that there were at least 4 separate times where Jonathan always seems to be like watching out for Tag.
Was that when Jordan's powers were really wonky, though?
It was really when, I mean, they've always been wonky.
No, but there was an episode where obviously Jordan lost his cool and Jonathan, in his super eye speed, like got between them and he shattered his fingers, which is what I'm trying to ascertain when that was going on. I think that was with Tag too.
Like, I mean, I think it's one of those subtle things. Like, if you weren't watching for it, you wouldn't have caught to the whole. I'm pretty sure Jonathan has powers because he had well, first off, he caught his brother's fist, which is a big thing. So he obviously had to have seen that fist because that fist was not moving regular speed.
The camera, if you watched it, the camera angle was not from Jordan to John. It went from this way, but it went that way. And it suddenly flipped as if Jonathan saw it was coming, knew it was coming, and moved into the path of it. Because he obviously knows that he could catch it.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of things with Jonathan where I think it's because of the fact that when it came to the 2 boys, he was kind of he was the forgotten Kent. Let's not play it any subtly. Yeah, he was there, and yeah, he was a part of the show. But everything for him was so subtle. The fact that, he caught his brother's fist, the fact that he tried punching the log too, which a lot of people didn't notice, and he didn't hurt himself when he did it. Like, he threw a punch at that log. Did he dent it? We don't know, but we also know that he didn't hurt himself. He was out of the cast in a week. I saw the whole thing with Tag, the fact that he gets along with everybody, the fact that he is so personable, when you would think as much as he probably was a fish out of water far more than his brother was, he was able to get along with everybody. I think there'll be a lot more character development for Jonathan this season.
Yeah.
And I think a whole lot of things that are going to come out will come out. And if that's one of them, that's a great thing. I don't like the CW's track record when it comes to throwing representation in their shows. I mean, the only thing that saved Supernatural was the fact that CW didn't start it, and the people who were already in it basically put their foot down and said, no, you can't do this. But they've destroyed Riverdale, and
the problem is they throw in the representation. Don't get it twisted. They throw it in there for whatever reason. And oftentimes, not Riverdale, Supernatural, they killed off every single woman ever. Up into including what's her name, Rowena, at the end. And so as a woman, I'm like, okay, I get it. This is a man's playground, this show. But there were some very capable women that they knocked out. Very early on, there was like her name was Jo, Alana Tall. She was actually in the military, and an amazing character. And they killed her off. Just okay, off you go. So if they're going to throw representation in there for the sake of representation, just leave him as he is. Just play him straight. Because the minute that you start trying is not the right word, but it's the only word that I have right now. Trying too hard, you botch your chemistry with people. You make it weird to try and figure out what's going on. And it makes it weird for the viewer because we're like, okay, I can see that happening, but this and this, it doesn't add up. Why?
But the only one that they've really thrown, if we're going to call anything to anything, the only one that they've really thrown anything at is Jordan. Jordan with Sarah. Jordan's always gone after Sarah. Yeah, Jonathan is with this girl, but it kind of just fell into his lap. It wasn't he went out and chased after her. I mean, when it comes to with what's coming with this season, like, no. We know a little bit because of things that have come out, but they have actually been incredibly tight-lipped about what's going to happen. Like, there haven't been that many spoilers coming out, and those spoilers that have come out, they've said, yeah, that's what's happening. Like, Lana Lane magically appears. Okay, cool. Where did she come from? There's somebody from one of the other Arrowverse shows that's showing up, and that's been confirmed too in one of the later shows. That's great to know too.
Who's showing up?
I don't.
Diggle. Again, the only character that makes sense is Diggle.
There was something because Tyler took a photo and he was in it as well, and somebody noticed him in the background and called him out on it. And the show had to come out and say that, yeah, he's there.
Yeah, Diggle's the only one that, I mean, unless they do something weird and bring in the Reverse Flash to torture
that
him.
Would be insane.
No, they need to, if this show, like, we can argue the schematics, but if the show is to survive, there's a fundamental, like, baseline thing that they need to bring in Lex Luthor. Okay, you can bring in Zod all you want. You can bring in second tier or third tier Superman villains, but you already got rid of Zod pretty easily on the grand scale. And the only other person that got under Superman's skin regularly was Luthor. So it's like, hey, John Cryer, we kind of need to bring you back because we need to do something. But unless he, because John Cryer was in the main verse too, or even bring in what's her name, Lena. But I think that would upset the Supergirl people immensely.
Right. Or unless we're going to play on the multiverse and bring in a Lex Luthor from another world.
Yeah, the Smallville guy threw a temper tantrum and he won't play anymore. But he was a brilliant Lex Luthor. The point is Superman without Lex Luthor is like Captain America without a shield.
Right.
You need one to complement the other.
It's kind of interesting too because they're actually working on if it's going to officially happen, but Smallville, Lex Luthor, Smallville, Clark Kent, they're working on an animated Smallville series. But it's not like an official project. They're trying to pitch it to Warner Brothers, so we'll see.
Honestly, what I would think would be hilariously funny? You should have them cast Lex Luthor as Tom Wellington and bring him in, because I would love to see Tom Wellington dish out all the crap he got from Lex Luthor all those years ago. And it would be a tongue-in-cheek joke because, the multiverse and everything. So it remade Lex Luthor into, but I think Lex Luthor in Earth Prime is Tom
John
Cryer.
Cryer. Yeah.
John Cryer, not Tom Cryer.
And I think that John Cryer has done, I think, an admirable job in playing that character. So,
do you think that they are going to fix the Jor-El crystal?
I think that Jor-El has been such an important part of who Clark is. The fact that they buried it, I think that we know that in order for them to create the fortress, that it's had to be put into the ground. I like the idea that potentially it's going to end up getting reforged.
I think so.
I think I agree. I think that we need the Fortress of Solitude back.
Right.
Because Clark does have, like, this Clark did show in the multiverse, whatever, in his previous, version of self, that he had a lot of the stuff in the Fortress of Solitude from all the stuff he'd done. Mm-hmm. The rings, the a whole bunch of different things. So I kind of would like them to bring back Jor-El. I kind of thought I secretly hoped last season at the end when they were burying the crystals. Yes, the pod crashed. I even though it was obviously the sister, and that's another thing. Sorry, I'm a squirrel. The sister that they just got, Jonathan had already bonded to said sister over the video. So is Jordan going to feel like a third wheel because Jonathan had already had time to absorb it and was really kind of happy about having a sister? And he wanted to know her. He wanted to, do things. And now the sister's alive. So I also wonder if that could be a little fun thing off to the side.
I think that there's going to be a lot of jealousy involved here.
A lot.
The idea that she's going to want to share Lois's attention, and Lois is going to try to get a relationship with her, and the boys aren't going to want to share. I think that's going to be a little bit of a conflict with them.
Do you think both brothers are going to be unwilling to share, or do you think it's going to be one of them? Like, I kind of feel like it I don't know how much more you can oust Jonathan. Like, I don't know how much more you could push Jonathan out. Like, because Jordan always needs his mom, and now the sister is there from another dad from another universe. Yeah. Or did they complete? Or is there a time paradox that got created? That I wondered in all of this, based on how they ran in Crisis and all that stuff. If they aren't supposed to exist in this world, then wouldn't they eventually trigger the legends? Because they would be an anomaly.
I think that because it is clearly it's an anomaly, but it's an anomaly that Oliver created and that he's sustaining, right? So that's not necessarily the same as somebody tampering with the timeline and creating a variant that wasn't supposed to happen, right?
Yeah. I was just thinking about it. Like, I think the multiverse has totally messed with my brain in both universes at this point. Like in both.
No. Yeah, we Steve and I have an understanding about when it comes to time travel and such that we just have to take a deep breath and accept it, right? It's that whole God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah,
we know that
it's all crazy and not the right thing. Like, I have to accept it.
I know. I can blow Steven's mind just by starting to talk about Savitar.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. So
I loved Savitar. I really wanted.
He couldn't have been Savitar the entire time. There's no way. Sorry.
He was that. Oh, he just repeated the same time loop over and over and over again until he collected all the power.
And like, it had to start at some point. Like, he had to be like, "Hey, Savitar, punch! I'm taking your suit," and then boom. Then
he made the suit.
But,
Barry is. You forget that Savitar is Barry. Barry is a genius. Barry figured out the time-space continuum and created his own variant, created his own basic flashpoint, and kept living that flashpoint over and over again until he could break out of the flashpoint. That's how Savitar got created. Once he broke himself out of the flashpoint, of course, the time wraiths were coming after him. But, and then we all know how that ended up. But that's how Barry... They have made Barry Allen smarter in every Barry Allen version on the CW except our Barry Allen. Okay, our Barry Allen can't trim his nails without being told how. But every variant of Barry Allen is a genius and is smarter than he is, which is really funny because he's not. Barry is smarter than it is.
He still
hasn't made Gideon.
No.
Oh, did he kill Gideon again?
I guess the last episode of the 5th part that he had to like kill Gideon, I guess, but
I feel like the Flash is going down that really dark rabbit hole that Oliver lived in for like a couple years. Mm-hmm. He's lived in this like I don't know. I call it the Oliver rabbit hole where he decided he didn't want his team anymore. He just kicked them all away and became whatever he was doing. And that's kind of the hole that Barry Allen's going in. But I also feel like the Flash has forced upon us this whole new team of people. And some of them worked. But I would have personally enjoyed seeing I would have enjoyed seeing all of the, what are they called? The kids that they made. Okay. The kids, like the speed force.
Oh yeah.
Like all 4 of those actors were brilliant. They were better than their own kids. I loved them all. I'm like, can I have like just more episodes? I would have watched a whole show just with those 4 in their own world running it, because I think it would have been a fabulous show to watch. And you could have had, Gustin guest star every now and again, but their chemistry together and then with their parents, especially Stillforce. Yeah, Stillforce guy.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. I loved him. So, and anyway, rabbit holes, but you could go in. There's tons of rabbit holes we could just fall into.
There really are.
Because it's, I mean, everything out there is right now is so many rabbit holes. I mean, you can talk about every show right now. I feel like is trying to fix themselves from COVID, and so they've opened so many doors for rabbit holes.
Yeah. And, well, let's go ahead, because we do need to wrap up this rabbit hole. What I do want to do before we leave is, let's say 30 seconds. Each person gets 30 seconds. Say one thing or things that you're excited about season 2. All right. Whoever wants to go first.
Go, Chloe.
I'm just excited to see Jonathan's character development, because they've messed him up and he deserves more. Like, I would like to be proven right with my theory that he's got the latent powers and that, he's a bigger part of this than
Jonathan. If Elsass couldn't poker face his way out of it,
that Jonathan's like,
I'm really sure about that.
Yeah, but I would like I would like to be confirmed, and then
I would like to see, same as her, I'd like to see a development in Jonathan. I'd like to see Clark and his drama. I'd like to understand how Clark is going to deal with now having his wife having a child that's not really hers, but emotionally and tangibly. Technically, she has another child and another husband that technically look at her as if they're her mom and wife. So Clark is going to have to not only share his wife, but share his whole world. And I just don't see how that happens. I want to see if he falls back into more of a Kryptonian mindset to deal with it, because Tyler has shown so much strength in being able to be Clark Kent. I'd love to see more of his Superman. We got to see tiny bits of it, and it would be cool to see what he does.
Wow. I don't know what I want to see. Geez. I want to see somebody else find out, like at least find out about some of them. Like either, Clark Kent is Superman, or this kid has powers. Like I want to see somebody else go like, I know. And they're like, can we trust them? Like, I love that.
I think Lana will be that person. I hope it's so. Lana. I hope Lana says she's known it all along. My heart wants that to happen.
Or like, I hope they don't just go. I would rather them go like, "Oh yeah, I knew all along," not just like, "I think I always sort of kind of knew maybe." like all unsure if they knew or not. Like either you knew or you didn't know. I mean, come
but
on.
she loves him as a best friend, but she also loved him as a partner. And I
that's true.
I want to see her come to the full circle that she has always come to in the comics. But don't kill her, please.
Like, right. Yeah, don't kill her. Not yet.
Like I'm like,
maybe finale, but not episode 1.
No, kill the husband, kill the general. Don't kill her. We can go rabbit holes. We're not doing it. Being quiet.
Corey wants to know how many kids he has in another universe. 17.
Right.
All right. And what about you, Chris?
You know what? We have not given John Henry Irons a whole lot of love here in this episode. I've really enjoyed the game they played with us with him, making us think that he was a variant Lex Luthor, and then revealing him as being John Henry Irons. I really liked the teamwork aspect that we saw between him and Superman. It was the team up that they really needed, and I think I'm just excited to see how that dynamic changes and grows. I think here for the new season.
Do you think it can grow, or do you think it's going to turn into alt husband versus real husband?
I think there's going to be some. I think it's going to be a wedge. I don't think that I don't think that Superman, Clark Kent, has any desire to share his wife, and I think that's going to be tough. And I don't think he's ready to necessarily make room for a child that isn't his. He's going to feel like Lois is emotionally cheating on him.
They're going to live in the barn, in the camper. That's what's going to happen. Right. The barn.
The barn. Spin-off show, The Barn.
Right.
Yeah. What happens in the barn? No, that would be a web series. The web series, What Happens in the Barn.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes.
It stays in the barn.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for having us on. Yeah. We'll touch base with you because I have some ideas and we have to figure it out. But
yeah, we can do another episode or something sometime soon during the season or at the end of the season, somewhere in there.
It's going to be called. We're going to have to think of a joint name. I don't know what it will be, but it'll be something creative. A debate in a hard place or something. We can, but it's going to be our annual mid-season or whatever.
No, the minute that it comes out that Jonathan has powers, that'll be the day.
There we go.
Like, boom,
she's gonna blow up the chat.
Right.
Then I DM Jordan Ellis, that's like, you liar.
Oh yeah, and it was me wanting him to have powers the whole time.
Right.
So I'm always on Team Jordan or Jonathan.
You spoke it into existence.
Yeah.
All right, boys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for inviting us. We love talking to you.
Have a good night.
Yes,
Take care.
Bye, guys.
See ya.